From across time and space and throughout the multiverse, listen as multiple generations of geeks come together to discuss the iconic characters, events, and franchises that make up the very fabric of pop culture as we know it. Let Your Geek Side Show presents Then and Now. Hey guys, this is Kitty.
This is Paul.
And we are coming to you from the Sideshow Studios in Southern California. This week, we're breaking down the fourth wall in order to get into the mind of Marvel's very own Merc with a Mouth. This twisted character has become synonymous with comedy, absurdity, and pushing the limits of what's allowed inside a comic book panel or on the movie screen. But was he always this way? And who do we have to kill to get some chimichangas in here? No, you're not hearing extra voices in your head. This is Deadpool Then and Now. Thank you for joining me this week, Paul.
Oh, I'm happy to. This is a fun one.
This is a fun one. Very funny as well, though, because we did ask a few other people if they wanted to join in on this podcast. And I think the character of Deadpool intimidates a lot of people, or people don't know as much about him as they like him. They're like, oh, I love him, but I don't know. And you know what? I don't know a whole ton about his backstory, too. I had to do plenty of research of my own. But this is a character who definitely warrants an examination, maybe by a licensed professional psychotherapist. But Deadpool is a fascinating character who I think a lot of people end up just seeing the kind of meme-ified parts of him now, but there is a lot that has happened with the character that is more so than just the annoying cosplayers who think they have license to harass people at conventions.
He's kind of grown. The character of Deadpool has kind of grown as like a brand to me. Like, it's so weird that I sometimes legitimately forget that Deadpool is a comic book character because you can see Deadpool everywhere in all manner, like people that like I know personally that have never read a comic book and they're like, I love Deadpool. And that is so exciting because I mean, regardless of how you feel about the character, the movies, any media that Deadpool's in, it's exciting to see this level of attention that this character is getting, and for very particular reasons.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I worked in a comic book store around the time the first film came out, and it was very exciting to see new people come in to the store and look for Deadpool comics. We had to stock up. I think we mostly kept the Brian Posehn and Jerry Duggan run stocked up for when people came in and said, "What can I read this Deadpool?" But whether or not you are a comic book fan and you engage with Deadpool, there are multiple layers of where you can enjoy him. You can enjoy him on the surface for the comedy and the crazy crack talk, or if you're more familiar with the comic book genre, or now recently the cinematic universes for these Marvel and X-Men. I mean, yes, X-Men are Marvel characters, but the film universes, the lampooning of the actual tropes of the medium,
right?
Which is not to say that like Deadpool is the most nuanced character out there, but there is a lot of creative potential, I think, for writers and artists to really mess around with what he's able to do. Little quick background on Deadpool for people. I think his is one of the most famous first appearance comics ever. I mean,
it might be. Like,
yes, Superman has Action Comics and whatnot, but New Mutants 98, which came out in 1991, created by Rob Liefeld and Fabian Nicieza. I think I said that right, Nicieza. He is like that comic. I mean, I can already conjure up the image of the comic cover in my mind. But that is one of the most popular kind of books that floats around comic book stores right now. There's actually some debate as to whether or not he's a mutant or a mutate. So for those of you playing along at home, mutants are the X-Men. They have an X gene that is in their DNA that is latently activated at some other point, or maybe they were born with their mutant powers. Mutates are people who don't have an X gene, but they acquired some strange mutation that gave them powers later in life. So like the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man are human mutates.
Right.
But of course, Wolverine and Jubilee and Storm are mutants. I think most popularly, even though he's associated frequently with the X-Men and he did appear in New Mutants, a lot of people consider him to be a mutate because he was experimented on by the Weapon X program.
Right.
And so it just depends on whether you read his origin as the powers were already there and just waiting to be activated, or it was a result of the experimentation.
Yeah, because I've seen some people argue the fact that like, okay, well, he developed a very, very specific and very rare type of like cancer. They're like, and if it wasn't for that particular type of cancer, with the experimenting on him, he would have never become Deadpool. So people are like, use that.
He could have died from the cancer, but if he had the healing factor that he did as a mutant power, the healing factor also would have killed him.
Exactly.
And some people also say that the healing factor, I mean, the healing factor and the cancer keep each other at bay because it's the development of new excess tissue and then the killing of it.
I always think of it as like to throw it on the other side of the fence there, like with Firestorm, how it's like always in flux, but that's where he gets like his power from, you know?
Yeah.
And Deadpool's, I mean, he's an interesting one. I think I loved your note, because I always thought in my brain, it's like, I couldn't think of another character who breaks the fourth wall as much. I was like, he's got to be the first one.
Yes. So there is no, whether or not you want to debate whether he's a mutant or a mutate, there is no debate that he is not the first Marvel Comics character to break the fourth wall, but he is certainly the most popular.
Yes.
It has fallen out of use by its original honoree. She-Hulk did it 2 years before Deadpool was even a character. She broke the fourth wall in 1989 during the John Byrne run, very famously talking to the readers about buying her comic. She had what they actually, before they called it like fourth wall breaking, they called it comic awareness. She knew she was in a comic. She talked to her editors a lot. She threw the writer out of a window. But
as one does.
This really became a staple of Deadpool's appearances, especially with Gail Simone's run, I believe. Or no, Gail Simone kind of did the multiple voices a lot. That also wasn't a staple of his first kind of appearance. But yeah, so he is known for that zany kind of awareness of his own surroundings.
Right.
And that translated incredibly well to the movie that finally came out.
Oh, wow.
And you know, for as much as I don't consider myself a longtime Deadpool fan. I enjoy the character, especially when he's used well. And I think Gail Simone and Brian Posehn and Jerry Duggan are kind of like the top tier of Deadpool
definitely.
writers. But the movie, I was blown away by the movie.
It really did cement basically Deadpool in our culture. I think he was at a tipping point where it's like there was definitely people I knew that weren't really big comic book fans, and they were wearing Deadpool shirts just because of the zaniness of him punching Abraham Lincoln in the face because he has to time travel. Then he's reading,
destroying Moby Dick because he's in a book,
and shooting Don Quixote in the face. There's all kinds of weird things that he does. But with the Ryan Reynolds vehicle, with the movie that came out, it was really unique. I remember I was at Comic-Con when that footage leaked, and it was like of the car rolling and everything. I was like, "There's no way that this is real." I remember sitting there and thinking, "There's no way that this is real, and this movie is going to get made." And then, sure enough, not only did that scene make almost like cut for cut into the film, but like the film was amazing. And
and you know, it didn't happen overnight. It was a long crusade, but very few people know what their purpose is on this earth. But I think Ryan Reynolds has known since birth that he was put on this earth to be Deadpool. To bring Deadpool to the masses.
No better Wade than Ryan.
But I think a large part of that success is owed to Ryan's contributions to the marketing campaign of the film.
Right.
Because the first film actually did have a pretty limited marketing budget. So they did kind of almost like guerrilla warfare on social media. Like just the sheer insanity, the if you remember the skull poople billboards, the use of creative trailers, the talking over himself kind of, but like
there was the one where it was like a dating app and like the final like behind the curtain was Deadpool.
Really?
Yeah, and that's
I didn't see that one.
Yeah, it's like he's dating someone and it's like, "Hey, how's it going?" It's like, "Watch our movie." And then like that's it.
Yeah, but he actually
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds kept one of the costumes that was constantly used. But that contributed to like the awareness of what the character could be at his fullest potential, and then like help create kind of the modern context of his voice. I did look it up here. So Deadpool, he debuted in New Mutants, and he palled around in New Mutants for a while. He was also part of X Factor or X-Force. Yes,
X-Force.
X-Force.
X-Force, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. X Factor is different. There's so many X teams.
I think X Factor is the show with Simon Cowell.
There is an X Factor team.
Yeah.
I promise you that.
Deadpool didn't work with Simon Cowell.
No affiliation.
Not yet.
And he did debut as a villain and then became an anti-hero. And his first ongoing series was in 1997, written by Joe Kelly I was reading an article that called Ed McGuinness a newcomer.
Oh, geez.
Ed McGuinness was a newcomer when he worked on the Deadpool book in the 90s. That book introduced Blind Al and Weasel as well. And Joe Kelly said we could do anything we wanted because people expected the book to get canceled every 5 seconds. And Kelly introduced the mainstream use of Deadpool breaking the fourth wall, which was then ignored largely until Gail Simone's run.
Right.
Yes. So there we go. Got that straightened out. But
I always love too in a lot of the in some of the runs, like especially during I think Dugan's run where he did like Killustrated. That was Dugan?
I think so.
Yeah, and
it was if it wasn't Jerry Duggan's stuff, it was coming out concurrently. I don't know how you pronounce it. I say Duggan.
I always thought it was Dugan. But
sorry, Jerry.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was coming out concurrently then. And I remember most prominently the Moby Dick issue.
Yes.
But there was a Tom Sawyer and there was Don Quixote.
Yeah, and there was for me that was always really interesting because I loved the multiple personalities of him, especially once you start getting to like Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe.
Yes.
And how he's got like the yellow box, which is like the one that talks to the audience, and that's the one that's zany and says chimichangas and unicorns. Then he has like the white text box, which is Wade Wilson.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm trapped in this body, but I'm making it work. And then you have like the red box, which is like, I've killed the other two boxes. It's like it's so meta that it's like it could only be Deadpool or else it wouldn't work with anyone else.
And it's actually interesting. We did a past podcast on the many deaths of Deadpool, the notable deaths. I really like Black Panther killing him for spoiling Game of Thrones. But there was an explanation as to one of the boxes. I believe it was the yellow box. Was the character Madcap. And there was an incident in which, because Madcap had disappeared from continuity, and so they did a look back. And there was an incident in which Deadpool and Madcap were fighting, and Thor came to stop the altercation. He smote them with lightning, turning them both to ash. And then when Wade regenerated, everyone just assumed that it was just Deadpool, because Deadpool is the one with the regenerating powers. But his ash got mingled in with Madcap's ash.
Oh my.
And Madcap became one of the voices inside of his head. And so to rectify the problem, he had Luke Cage and Thor, my two comic book guys, rip him in half. And one half of Deadpool regenerated into Deadpool, and the other half was Madcap.
Oh, of course.
So I don't necessarily think that the voices in his head warrant an explanation, but there is one if you want one.
If you'd like one, yeah.
It is there. It's available to you.
Of course.
But that's the kind of absurdity of the character. And he's got this on again, off again friendship with Cable that we do see again in the movie.
Oh, so great.
They were originally enemies, and then it's kind of that like love your enemy like your brother deal.
I think the Cable stuff is fantastic, but my absolute favorite interaction is like, it's not really a funny one, but it's his interactions with like Taskmaster, who can predict, and assimilate to any fighting style from anyone except Deadpool on most occasions, because he's like, I have no idea what the hell this guy's gonna do. Like I don't know if he's gonna.
I can't figure that out.
Yeah, I don't know if he's gonna like swallow a bomb and then just hug me, or just shoot at me.
Which, if that hasn't happened already, it should.
It should. I'm sure it has.
Oh my goodness. So this is also a fun little thing because Deadpool walks the line of anti-hero, but is he actually helping anyone? This is also a preview because we recorded them out of order, but he was on the Astonishing Avengers with Sabretooth, Magneto, Mystique, etc. During the Axis event because Scarlet Witch and Doctor Doom cast a spell that made all the heroes villains and villains heroes. So he had a little stint with that team up because he was like, "Hey guys, I'm the straight man now." I'm like, I'm going good. And then he did die at the end of the Pasain run, kind of right before Secret Wars. Secret Wars introduced, and there's, as long as there's been Deadpool, there's been other pools as well.
Oh, of course, yes. I like Headpool.
Yes,
Headpool is a fantastic one.
Dogpool.
Kidpool.
There's Deadpool the Kid, I think. He's the Western.
And I love their super secret lair, which is just Wade Wilson's apartment.
Yes. There's Panda Pool. Venom Pool, which is actually, Venom Pool is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, Venom Pool is really sick.
That was a What If comic that got popularized by the Marvel Contest of Champions video game that I played for a while until it got too difficult for me. But notably, Gwenpool is not a Deadpool.
No.
Gwenpool was made as a joke. Yeah, so technically she's not a Deadpool, but it came from there was a Gwen Stacy variant month during the Secret Wars event, and she came on her first appearance is a cover of Deadpool's Secret Wars. And it was kind of that, like, Gwen Stacy's taking on the persona of different heroes. I have one where she's like a Thor type character and stuff, but people were like, hey, we could make this a viable thing. But when they introduced Gwenpool, they made it distinct. She's a girl named Gwendolyn Poole who lives in the real world, who somehow became a comic book character, who incorporates the fourth wall breakage of Deadpool because she's read all of his comic books, and she's in the comic book world, but she's read everybody's stories and stuff. But so it's interesting that they created a Gwen Pool who has the same. I know I don't want to get too far in the weeds about Gwenpool because we're here to talk about Deadpool. But notably, she's not the same as Kidpool, Dogpool, Headpool.
Right. Yeah, she's come from a different cloth.
Yes. Deadpool has also been involved with several heroic organization schemes, notably his Mercs for Money, which I love how they got their name. He originally made a group called the Heroes for Hire, but he got a cease and desist from Luke Cage.
Oh, did he? Yeah.
And Daredevil.
Yeah, they've got a lawyer.
Yeah,
so,
to stop using that name. So he created the Mercs for Money. He employed Fool Killer and Slapstick and Solo. There was like a rainbow group of Deadpools. Massacre or whatever. It's like he's like an all Spanish Deadpool. Who kind of looks like he's wearing a potato sack.
Of course.
But it is one of those characters that leads to, it's almost like his superpower is the mutation of other like parodies that increasingly get more absurd, but also examine the comic book genre. I mean, like if someone hadn't gone, well, I'm going to make this Hulk Gwen Stacy and then a Deadpool Gwen Stacy, we wouldn't have gotten Gwenpool, who's a reader of comics. And so it just adds to that kind of, the legacy of Deadpool is to kind of poke fun at the genre you're working within.
Yeah, and it's funny to see him peppered in with like mainstay comics where it's like every once in a while you're like, why is Deadpool in here being serious? Like, why is he actually fighting? Like,
it's like, when's the ball gonna
When is he gonna start talking to me? I paid for your talk to me, Deadpool.
I love that. I do want to jump back to the films, though, because I think because there's films, plural. Oh, my God.
Yes.
There's been more than one of them.
Recently announced there's going to be a third.
Yeah.
He's in the MCU now.
Yeah.
Whether not
Mickey
officially.
Mouse wants that or not.
Yeah. It's like, oh, boy.
Oh, boy. Yeah. That'll be interesting. Because especially with the second Deadpool, they experimented not only with the storytelling and the kind of parody that they could get away with within the narrative, but they experimented with the format in which it was presented to an audience. They did the theatrical release, and then they did the super duper expletive cut that was even longer.
Yeah.
And then they did a PG-13 re-release.
Which was hilarious.
See, I didn't end up getting to see that one.
Yes.
I did see the original theatrical release of Deadpool 2, but they PG-13ified it.
It basically just reminded me of like those old, I think it was, is it Jimmy Kimmel that does them? And it's like unnecessary bleeping.
Yes.
There's like it just feels like that made into a movie is what it is. It's so fantastic. And it's like, I wonder what started first.
With the capstone of the Princess Bride kid, all grown up now, right? That's
I believe so,
it's like Deadpool kidnapped Fred Savage, who was the kid in the Princess Bride.
Oh, right, yes.
And then was like, I'm going to read you a story. And it's me, PG-13.
I mean, the fact, like we had mentioned, I believe it was in the intro, like of what can be allowed in a comic or in a movie. When I saw at the very spoilers, I guess. I mean, it's been out forever.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it by now,
you don't want to see it. When he goes back and is behind, I believe it's Deadpool 2, when he goes back in the end credits when he sees Ryan Reynolds, he's like, oh boy, and he picks up the script for Green Lantern. He shoots Ryan Reynolds in the head. It's kind of like only Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool can pull that off.
And then he appears as his Wolverine Origins self as well. That's like, what the heck? Like, they sewed his mouth shut. Are you kidding me?
Which is like such a weird, like, I almost wonder if there was like some animosity. It's like the number one tool in Deadpool's arsenal is his mouth.
Yeah.
Like it's the Merc with a mouth, and they sewed it shut.
Yeah.
Such a weird take.
Yeah.
It is a choice that was made.
But I think that was Ryan Reynolds' supervillain origin story, as his like that he had so much contempt in his heart for the studio. No, I don't know. But no, and I think that was really funny. And even in the first Deadpool film, when he's talking about when Ajax and Angel Dust put him in that like hyperbaric chamber, he's like, am I gonna get like a CGI costume? Like I don't want a CGI costume. And
I mean, he even calls Josh Brolin. He's like, hey, zip it, Thanos. Like he calls Josh. Oh,
yeah. And so that, I think beyond the like the shock laughs. I think Deadpool is half like genuinely this is funny, and then half like shock laugh that is also still genuinely funny. Like when he is it basic? What is it? Basic? Oh, I don't know the movie. Sharon Stone.
Basic Instinct?
Basic Instinct, when he does with the baby legs.
Yes.
I wanted to call it Fatal Attraction, but that's a totally different movie. But yeah, with the baby legs. But that got mostly laughs because it was shocking. And then it was like, okay, only Deadpool would be like, I've got tiny toddler legs while I'm regenerating. And surprise.
And then he has, is it the hands? Or is it the whole lower body?
The first movie is the hands.
And
the second movie, Juggernaut rips him in half. And
Oh,
he's
right,
regrowing
right.
the second half, which leads me to wonder, do the legs grow a tiny Deadpool at the top of them? Because now...
Well, it depends on what type of pot you put him in then. Yeah. You know? It's like succulents.
Yeah, if you water it.
I've learned.
But yeah, I think the comedic potential, and then hey, he's not above a cheap joke. My favorite of the viral marketing for Deadpool 2 was San Diego Comic-Con, whichever year was right before that. Was it 18?
Yeah, might have been.
Because I think it came out in fall 18. San Diego Comic-Con. All of the toilet seat covers in all of the bathrooms had Deadpool's face right on the center.
Nice.
And people took those out of the bathrooms and sold them on eBay.
Did they
Like,
really?
they're toilet seat covers, but they had Deadpool's
I'm glad they
face on them.
sold. I
That was a gross from super producer Sam. I mean, they weren't used, but they took the ones out of the bathroom.
Wow. None of the ones I took sold.
That's being met with a resounding no from super producer Sam.
Wow, did we just figure out super producer Sam's Christmas gift?
Yeah, you're this is enjoy the last time you're ever going to hear Paul on this podcast.
Oh, going out with a bang.
But again, I mean, it's the cheap humor, but then also the skewering of the, like, I love when he says like, oh, we could only afford the like D-list X-Men cameos, and then in the second film you see him the X-Men from the X-Men films. You see like Storm and
Like,
Beast and
in a room.
yeah, they're
right.
in Xavier's mansion.
They're like hiding from him,
yes.
right?
And then they shut the door as he like opens it, but he doesn't like see them. And
then my favorite cameo in any movie is Brad Pitt.
Oh yes, as the Vanisher.
As the Vanisher. And I love how, I don't know if it's true, but I loved reading about how that came to be, that he would literally like apparently did it for like a cup of coffee because he was in town.
Yeah, he
when that
filmed
was
it in
happening.
2 hours, and it was filmed post-production. Yeah, and that's another thing. Like I want to, as opposed to just rehashing our favorite moments from these films, because that could be an entire hour of
Yes.
this podcast, or just watch the movies. The subversion of the expectations of the audience, the marketing materials for Deadpool 2 hyped and hyped and hyped and hyped that we were going to see X-Force, we were going to see Shatterstar and Zeitgeist and Bedlam. They got Terry Crews and they got Bill Skarsgård, and those characters all die within 5 minutes of appearing. I mean, not even 5 minutes. It's like 2 or 3 minutes.
Terry, no.
Yeah, and then and then we get that amazing cameo of like the Vanisher, who is invisible and silent up until the moment where he lands on a telephone wire, and it's Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Like, the audience was like, okay, surely, well, we're getting Cable and Domino, and we're getting Fire Fist. Well, surely there's going to be time to balance with X-Force, right? And then they introduced the cameos, and everyone's like, yeah, we're getting Shatterstar, and like all these.
that.
Yeah. Deadpool was like, no.
I did gasp when I did see Juggernaut, though. I thought that was pretty insane. I mean, I try not to go into movies knowing too much. I'll watch a trailer, maybe two. But like seeing Juggernaut, I was like, that was like seeing Mark. Like that was an amazing cameo. Not better than Brad Pitt, but it was still pretty good.
Yeah, and I love Zazie Beetz as Domino, and I want to see more of her, especially after Gail Simone's recent run. I'd love to see Domino get her own film with Crazy Inez Temple and Diamondback. But yeah, everything about the film is like, hey, you've watched all the X-Men movies, right? You think you know what those are? You're wrong. Hey, you've watched all the Marvel movies, right? You think you know what those are? You're absolutely wrong. I mean, they take these characters and even if they could or could not get the best X-Men for these, you get Colossus, you get a reworking of Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
Oh, pretty cool.
They unfortunately don't get to explore Vanessa's origins as Copycat. Like, if you're not familiar with the comics, there is a switcheroo where he is dating Vanessa, and then she turns out to be Copycat, who's a mutant who can shapeshift and stuff. And so, but we didn't get that, but we do get Angel Dust and Ajax and. Yeah, and Juggernaut and Fire Fist, and then there's a bunch of cameos when Deadpool and Fire Fist or Rusty Collins are in
Right.
that kind of icebox prison. You get Black Tom Cassidy and Sluggo and like a bunch of random X-Men cameos.
Like these are
or,
like D-list,
yeah.
right?
Oh,
people.
if
like
they're lucky.
Yeah, if they've made the alphabet.
Yeah. But it's fascinating because they're like, hey, if we can't have the big guns, we're going to take what we have and we're going to work with them because it made a beautiful mess, but that mess turned out to be magic.
And I love, to kind of bring it back more to like Deadpool as a character. I love it. It kind of personifies the character in that he was originally a ripoff of Deathstroke.
Yes.
His name
Slade
is
Wilson.
Slade Wilson. He's literally Wade Wilson. And if that doesn't like sum up like the character that he started as a parody, I mean,
and in some ways, I mean, as a Marvel fan, I might be biased, but in some ways, he has surpassed Slade in like notoriety.
Oh,
like,
easily.
I know a lot about Slade because I love Teen Titans, but like most people will go, oh, Slade Wilson, that's kind of like Wade Wilson instead of the other way around.
I don't think there's like anyone out there like there's going to be someone listening and saying like that's not true. Send their hate mail to paul@imsorry.com. And Deathstroke doesn't have like the cult following that Deadpool does. I wouldn't even say it's even close. Like I love Deathstroke. I love him, he's in like Titans and so I love to see different iterations of him. But yeah, Deathstroke is just is lightning in a bottle. Mm-hmm. It's just like this absurdity that I think allows people to really like I feel like tap into comics and like feel like they're definitely, maybe if you've been out of love with comics for a while or maybe you're not necessarily as familiar with pop culture, I think Deadpool allows you that that one foot in the doorway because he's always going to be in comics. He's always going to be, and especially now, referencing these superheroes and the you've got
I have an issue where he's talking about buying Hamilton tickets, for goodness sake.
And he's relevant in pop culture, and he's like the perfect, like he's the perfect avatar for someone who's like, again, I'm not a big comic book fan, but I love Deadpool. Yeah. It's like I know Deadpool, and I think that's why he stayed around so long. Yeah,
and I think because of his proclivity to address the audience, that's another way that people can get into the story. I mean, there is that invisible fourth wall barrier, and some people are like, okay, I've never read a She-Hulk comic. I don't know where to jump in. But with Deadpool, they're like, there is that almost that bond that he's reaching out. He's like, hey, I might not know what's going on in my own issue, or I do know, and I'm going to clue you in on what it is. Now, I mean, we're kind of winding down here, and I don't think we're going to be able to accurately comment on it any more than we already have. But it is interesting to think. I mean, the film was, I think, the final push that Deadpool needed to cement himself as like an A-list Marvel character. Right. But would the film have been so successful had there not been both successful Marvel films that they could parody and the unsuccessful Green Lantern, Deadpool Origins, or Wolverine Origins? And I don't even want to say the X-Men films up to that point were unsuccessful. They just weren't. The richness of the
steam was kind of coming out of the sails a little bit. I think people, these movies were coming out and we were starting to see like a shared Marvel universe. Yeah. And they were, even though they might have done it first technically, it was kind of there might have been a saturation of it.
Yeah, but to exist in some capacity, Deadpool needs. I mean, he's proven time and again he doesn't necessarily always need something to parody, but in the most salient appearances of his characters, he does need something to parody both the good, the bad, and the ugly. So it would be interesting to see whether or not in that alternate universe where Uatu is like, listeners, this is what happened if the Marvel Cinematic Universe had flopped, but we still got a Deadpool film. Would Deadpool have been so successful without those things to reference? I think the humor would definitely be there, but that additional metatextual element of he's making fun of how this happens in a comic book panel, or that he's making fun of how this happens in another film. I don't know if it's too cerebral, but it's like Deadpool is a very literarily versed and referenceable and well-informed kind of reading experience if you understand the jokes. And then there's always, again, those jokes that you don't have to have any prior knowledge to get into. You just go, Deadpool's pretty funny, and I want to read that guy's adventures.
Yeah, he's got a large appetite, but he's not, above low-hanging fruit.
Especially not chimichangas.
Not chimichangas.
While it might be easy to boil him down to a few popular memes and jokes, unicorns, tacos, chimichangas, the Golden Girls, did we miss anything? Deadpool's character provides writers, actors, and artists a unique opportunity to examine and experiment within the creative medium. Whether he's tearing through panels or talking directly to the audience, the regenerating degenerate's antics are irreverent, exhausting, and exciting. Deadpool might not be everybody's cup of tea, but his potential for comic book comedy and social commentary can't be contained by four walls alone. Thank you for joining us. This has been Deadpool Then and Now. Do you enjoy listening to Then and Now? We are proud to bring you pop culture content completely ad-free, but that doesn't mean we don't need your support to help keep us going. Please take a moment to leave a 5-star review on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting platform and help spread the word about our podcast. We welcome fan feedback. Email us at podcasts@sideshow.com with your thoughts and suggestions for how we can make our shows even better. Plus, tune in for our full network of pop culture podcasts. See if your fan favorites make the cut in the Geek Culture Countdown, a bi-weekly podcast featuring pop culture top 10 lists. Hear exclusive interviews with celebrities and pop culture industry leaders as they let their Geek Side show in Look Who Showed Up. Join comedian Jeff May and his special guests as they discuss anything and everything in Sideshow's Sideshow. Then get all the latest pop culture news with our daily briefing, a 2-minute breakdown of the biggest geek headlines perfect for your Alexa or Google News briefings. We wouldn't exist without your continued support. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to let your geek side show.